I've learned that crime scenes don't shout. They whisper. And if you walk in already convinced you know what happened, you'll miss everything. The call came in just before dawn. A child. 3 years old. Unresponsive. Declared dead on arrival. Those are the cases that sit in your chest long after you clock out. The house was quiet when I arrived. Too quiet for a place where a toddler had lived. Toys were lined up neatly along the wall, like someone had tried to make the space look calmer than it really was. The kind of calm people create when they're afraid of chaos being blamed on them. The mother sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at a spot on the floor she refused to look away from. The father stood near the window, arms crossed, jaw locked so tight I could almost hear his teeth grind. Between them was the babysitter. Early 20s. Clean clothes. Hair tied back neatly. No mascara running. No shaking hands. She looked like someone waiting for a bus, not someone who had just lost a child in her care. That was the first thing I noticed. The paramedics said there were no obvious injuries. No bruises. No blood. No signs of a fall. The child had simply stopped breathing during an afternoon nap. That happens, they said. Rare, but not impossible. I don't like the word impossible, but I trust unlikely even less. I walked into the child's bedroom. Small bed. Cartoon sheets. A stuffed rabbit tucked under the pillow like it had been placed there carefully on purpose. The room smelled faintly of baby lotion and something sharper underneath it. Not enough to name yet. Just enough to make my brain take a mental note. The babysitter hovered in the doorway. She was fine when I put her down, she said quickly. Too quickly. She ate, she played, she laughed. Nothing was wrong. I didn't ask her anything yet. I never do it first. People fill silence when they're nervous. Innocent people do it too, but guilt has a rhythm. I just needed to hear it. The parents told me they'd used this babysitter for 6 months. No issues. References checked. Clean background. CPR certified. Trusted. That word again. Trusted. The medical examiner called later that morning. Preliminary autopsy showed no congenital issues. No choking. No airway obstruction. No signs of sudden illness. Cause of death pending toxicology. Pending is another word I don't like. While the body was sent to the lab, I stayed behind with my team. CSI work is patient work. Slow work. You collect what looks meaningless because meaning has a way of showing up late. We swabbed door handles. Bed rails. The child's hands. The bottle left on the nightstand. The stuffed rabbit. The crib sheets. Routine. The babysitter watched us like she was studying for a test she didn't know she was taking. Do you need anything from me? She asked. Her voice was steady. Almost helpful. Just your cooperation, I said. Same as everyone else. We took her fingerprints. Swabbed her hands. Standard procedure. She didn't flinch. Neither did the parents. By evening, the house was empty. The parents left to make arrangements. The babysitter left last, hugging the mother tightly, whispering something I couldn't hear. The mother collapsed into her shoulder like a woman clinging to the last solid thing in a breaking world. I watched the babysitter walk down the driveway afterward. Straight back. Calm steps. She didn't look back at the house. That night, I couldn't sleep. Children don't die quietly without a reason. Bodies always explain themselves eventually. You just have to wait long enough and ask the right questions. The lab results came in the next afternoon. No poison. No medication overdose. No illness. But there was something. DNA. Skin cells. Trace amounts. Found on the child's neck and collarbone area. Not enough to suggest violence. Enough to suggest contact. Normal, you'd think. Kids are touched all the time. Parents. Caregivers. Doctors. Except when the profiles came back, there were 3 contributors. The mother. The father. And a third profile that matched no one in the house. I stared at the report longer than I should have. Run it again, I told the tech. They did. Same result. Unknown DNA. Not random contamination. Not lab error. Clean markers. Clear transfer. Someone else had touched that child shortly before death. I went back to the house that evening. I asked the parents if anyone else had been there that day. A neighbor. A repair worker. A relative. They both shook their heads immediately. No one, the father said. Just us. And her. Her. The babysitter. But her DNA wasn't the unknown profile. Which meant one thing I never say out loud until I'm sure. We were missing someone. Or worse. We were looking in the wrong direction entirely. I closed the file slowly. Because DNA doesn't ask permission to exist. And it never shows up without a reason. DNA doesn't lie. But it does wait. The unknown profile didn't belong to the parents. It didn't belong to the babysitter. It didn't belong to anyone in the system. No priors. No matches. Just a clean genetic fingerprint sitting on a dead child's skin like a question no one wanted to answer. That's when cases get dangerous, when the evidence points to someone invisible. I went back to the timeline. The parents left for work at 8:10 a.m. Security footage from the apartment lobby confirmed it. The babysitter arrived at 8:22. A neighbor's door camera caught her walking in alone, backpack on her shoulder, phone in her hand. She was the only person seen entering. Or so we thought. CSI doesn't chase faces. We chase gaps. The autopsy update came in that afternoon. Cause of death was asphyxia. Not smothering. Not choking. Something slower. Something controlled. Pressure applied just long enough to shut the system down without leaving marks. Whoever did it knew exactly where to touch. I asked the lab to take another look at the DNA transfer. Skin cells don't float through the air. They travel by contact or by something that carried them. Clothing. Fabric. Objects. That's when the stuffed rabbit came back into focus. The one tucked neatly under the pillow. We re-swabbed it. Ears. Paws. Stitching around the neck. The unknown DNA was all over it. And underneath that hers. The babysitter. Not just touched. Pressed. Repeatedly. I brought her in that evening. Same calm posture. Same steady voice. Same clean hands. You said you were alone with the child, I told her. I was, she said. All day. I slid the photo of the rabbit across the table. Who gave this to her? She paused. Just for half a second. But half a second is a confession when you're trained to hear it. It was already here, she said. I think. I leaned back. Let silence do the work. The lab tech knocked and handed me the final toxicology addendum. Sedatives. Microdosed. Not enough to trigger alarms. Enough to make a child stop resisting. Administered through saliva. I looked at her mouth. At the lip balm in her bag. Clear. Unscented. Reapplied often. We found someone else's DNA on the toy, I said. Someone you brought into that room. Her eyes didn't widen. They hardened. He was never supposed to touch her, she said quietly. That was it. Her boyfriend. Recently fired from a care facility. No record yet. She let him in through the back door during nap time. Thought he'd just look. Just hold. She left the room. He panicked when the child stirred. Hands where they shouldn't have been. Pressure where it shuts everything down. She found the child minutes later. Cold. Silent. So she cleaned. Placed the toy. Hugged the mother. Walked away straight-backed. The boyfriend fled the city that night. We caught him 2 days later. The DNA did the rest. At sentencing, the judge asked if she wanted to speak. She said no. I stood in the hallway afterward, holding the final report. A child dead. A family destroyed. 2 people who thought trust was a blindfold instead of a responsibility. CSI doesn't bring closure. It brings truth. And sometimes that's heavier. Case closed. If you believe evidence never forgets. Subscribe to Silent Evidence Files. I'm Detective Tabby. And I'll be here, listening to what the evidence is still whispering.